few semesters ago, during my D1 orientation, we were doing a team building activity. We stood across from our classmates and we had to introduce ourselves. My classmate introduced herself and then I said, "I'm John." She said, "I know who you are. You're iconic." I had never met her before. I got real nervous and thought, what in the world does iconic mean to a 22-year-old in this scenario? I didn't know what to think.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
When the game was over, I immediately texted my daughters, who were all older than my classmate, and asked what it meant. A few weeks later, someone left a string of 5 fire emojis on an Instagram reel that I had posted. Again, I had no idea what it meant, and I had to text my daughters and find out, was this good or was this not? In a couple of weeks, I will turn 52 years old. My classmates are about 23 years old. Going to dental school when you are old enough to be your lab partner's dad creates a very unique set of circumstances. Today, I want to talk about some of the brutal realities, the funny generation gaps, and the massively unexpected advantages of attending dental school and what I refer to as the third phase of life. All on today's episode of Dr. Dad the Dentist. If you followed my content at all, you know that I am a huge proponent of people chasing their dreams. I truly believe that we can accomplish anything we set our minds to, but the road to get there can look very different depending on when you start. I stepped into dental school at 50 years old, the exact same age as many of my classmates' parents. And while it has been entirely worth it, it has created a very unique set of circumstances. Today, I'm going to break down the 3 biggest struggles that I face as a direct result of my age, paired with the 3 biggest benefits that come with it. Because with every challenge, there's also a blessing. Let's start with the elephant in the lecture hall. Learning at 52 years old feels entirely different than it did in my teens and 20s. In fact, it's even vastly different from when I was in graduate school in my early 30s. Back then, my brain was a sponge. If I needed to pull an all-nighter and cram 6 chapters of calculus, no problem. Now, my brain feels a little bit less like a sponge and a lot more like sandstone. The absolute biggest challenge I've faced, and the one that actually completely caught me off guard, comes down to a shift in something called neuroplasticity. Basically, as we get older, our brains experience a decline in the ability to move large amounts of information to long-term memory quickly. Specifically in our ability to bind completely unrelated pieces of information together. It's not that an older brain can't learn, it's just that putting data into long-term memory requires significantly more time, effort, and some different methods to happen. For example, if a dental school class is really heavily concept-based, where you can use logic and other mechanisms, I do really, really well. I can tell you exactly what's happening in a biochemical pathway, like what you start with, what you end with, the major structural changes, and why all that matters in the body. But remembering the exact name of the 4th enzyme on slide 85 of the PowerPoint deck, those nitty-gritty details, those are very, very difficult for me to remember. Basically, it all becomes a blur. When it comes to pure rote memorization, things like pharmacology, where you have to memorize a million distinct drug names, their interactions, their side effects, and they really don't seem to have a natural logical connection to each other, that is a monumental struggle. The thing is, that class is super important and it's something that I've got to learn. Some of my classmates can simply re-watch the lectures on 2x speed the night before. It all gets locked into their short-term memory and they crush the exam. Meanwhile, I end up spending 3 weeks studying for the exact same test and don't do as well. So how am I overcoming this challenge? Well, honestly, I am still figuring that out. I cannot out-memorize a 23-year-old anymore. I have to rely heavily on things like logic hooks or forcing myself into these deep work study blocks and doing everything I can to connect concepts to each other. Thing is, sometimes I just have to accept that there's days where the fire hose of information is gonna win. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. I don't share this as an excuse, and I'm definitely not looking for sympathy. I chose this path. I knew it would be tough. I just had no idea that this specific part would be such a mountain to climb. Do I wish I could 2x speed my way through the curriculum? Of course I do. But that's just not my reality. Like it or not, my reality requires a lot more sweat equity. I share this not to discourage anyone, but so that those that are out there that are considering a pivot later in life, maybe you're thinking of going to dental school or medical school or law school, or you have some other major dream, whatever it may be, go into it with your eyes wide open and with realistic expectations, because it is very different being 52 than it is being 23. But here's the counterbalance to that. While my brain might take longer to absorb all of the nitty-gritty details, I never waste a single ounce of energy wondering why I am here and why I'm doing this. There's a quote by Denzel Washington that says life has 3 distinct phases: Watch this.
What advice do you have?
First part of your life you learn, second part of your life you earn, third part of your life you return.
Can you be my therapist?
I already am.
I did my learning phase in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I then spent decades in the earning phase, working really hard for a lot of large and small companies. But I eventually reached a point where I wanted to return. I didn't want to spend my remaining years that I was going to be working just doing some job that didn't truly matter to me. I wanted to help people be healthy, feel better about themselves, and relieve their pain. I have been incredibly blessed in my life, and I want to give back. Life isn't just about me, it's about helping others. And just as importantly, I want to leave a legacy for my children and my grandchildren. The first grandchild is due in November of this year. I want them to see firsthand that hard work pays off, that you can accomplish your goals at any age, and that you should never give up on a dream. Many of my classmates are in their early 20s, and they're juggling this immense stress of figuring out who they are and what they want out of life. I don't have to carry that weight. I already know exactly who I am. My purpose is locked in, and that really keeps me centered when the volume of material gets overwhelming. When everything in me is saying, you should stop, this is way too hard, why are you doing this? I draw from that why to keep pressing forward. It took me a lot of years and a lot of life experience to develop this understanding of my life. And I'm deeply grateful for every single mile of the road that's gotten me here. And then there's the social element. Low key, I don't know a lot of the lingo. I don't know a lot of the current slang, honestly. And yes, I absolutely had to look up the phrase low key the first time I heard it. There has been more than one occasion where someone posted a meme in our class GroupMe and I had absolutely no idea what it meant, and everyone else around me was dying laughing. There are moments in dental school where I already feel completely inadequate because the curriculum is tough, but not understanding the basic vocabulary sometimes generally makes me feel dumb too. It's really forced me to realize just how vast a 30-year age gap can be. But to be completely honest, my classmates have been absolutely incredible about this, and they genuinely think it's fascinating that I was actually alive when Michael Jackson's Thriller album dropped. Who would have known? I think that says a lot about what an amazing group of future dentists I get to sit next to. They could easily blow me off and just think I'm that creepy old guy in the back, but instead, they've been very welcoming, accepting, and inclusive. And for that, I am incredibly grateful. But then we step out of the classroom and into the clinic. And suddenly, the 30-year age gap becomes my greatest superpower. Believe it or not, my age is actually a massive asset on the clinic floor. Most of the patients automatically assume I'm a faculty member or maybe a seasoned dentist just because of the gray hair. It immediately establishes a baseline of rapport, trust, and gives them some calmness. There is a distinct psychological difference in how patients perceive age. While it might not always be fair, a patient looking at a very young clinician sometimes thinks, are they experienced enough to do this? But when they look at someone older, they subconsciously assume expertise. Even though my classmates and I all have the exact same amount of dental experience, that initial perception completely changes the energy at the chairside. And it comes in handy every single day. Beyond perception, my life experience gives me a fundamentally different lens for patient care as well. When someone sits in my chair, I don't just look at them as a clinical requirement that I need to check off in order to graduate. I'm able to look at them the exact same way I would look at my wife, my daughters, or my own parents. I treat them with the same respect and dignity I would want for someone that I dearly love. I bring decades of navigating complex human emotions into that room. I understand the real world financial burden of dental care. That stuff is expensive. I know how to speak to someone with a deep, earned sense of empathy because I've lived enough life to have been in their shoes. And that's something you can't learn from a textbook. It only comes with life experience. And that experience is one of my greatest benefits. That brings us to the third challenge. The third challenge is purely physical. At age 52, there is almost no chance in the world that I can pull an all-nighter. Well, I guess technically I could pull an all-nighter, but then I would fall asleep in the middle of the exam and I would be utterly useless for a week afterwards. I have several classmates though who are incredibly good at all-nighters. Completely blows my mind. I wish I had that kind of raw, stamina that they have. But the reality is I just don't. By 11 p.m. or maybe 11:30 if I push it, I am done. If I try to study past that point, totally unproductive. My brain shuts off and I have to go to sleep. So my recovery time is longer and I have to manage my energy like a very finite resource because for me it is. I also have to be very careful of my nutrition and my caffeine intake. I look at my classmates and wish I could survive on Alani or Monster and black coffee alone, but my body just doesn't work like that anymore. What this means in the big picture is I have to be highly disciplined with my scheduling and preparation. Cramming is simply not an option for me, both because of the neuroplasticity challenges that I mentioned earlier, and the fact that I really have to allocate time for sleep. I have to start studying for exams early, like several weeks in advance. The physical limitations and the sleep requirements mean I have to approach my day-to-day survival in a fundamentally different way than many of my classmates do. And because I'm further along in life, I don't have to face any of these challenges alone. My final and perhaps greatest benefit is my support system. I've been married to my wife, Deidre, for 32 years now. She knows me better than I know myself, and she willingly chose to partner with me on this absolutely crazy journey of going back to dental school at my age. When I'm losing my mind over an impossible number of PowerPoint slides, she gives me the exact reality checks that I need. When I'm physically exhausted, she anchors me. I trust her implicitly because she doesn't just tell me what I want to hear, she tells me what I need to hear. The absolute best part of my day is getting to talk with her. And we actually have a very unique situation. I'm in Iowa for dental school while she is still back in Texas at home. She has a great job that she loves, and somebody has to make some money while I'm going to school, right? Plus our children live very close to our home as well. So even though we're 850 miles apart, we have one strict non-negotiable rule. We FaceTime each other every single night at 9 p.m. Nothing gets in the way of that. I'm so grateful for that technology. Who would have thought FaceTime would be such a big deal? But because there is no way I could survive dental school without being able to see her face every night. That 9 p.m. call is what grounds me. I can vent to her about what happened during the day, and she gives me encouragement. She offers perspective on things I need to change, and just lets me know that she's there for me. And I'm able to do that for her. Beyond that, I have 3 amazing daughters, Jana, Julie, and Jill, who support me in their own unique ways. I can call them anytime, and each of them brings a different strength and their different personalities to the table. They're always happy to listen, offer advice, or, as I mentioned earlier, explain the latest slang to me, or give me tips on improving my TikToks. I also have another huge blessing that without it would make it where I wouldn't be able to go out of state to go to dental school. And that's my 2 son-in-laws, Martin and Joseph. They help take care of the houses and the property and the cars while I'm gone. When the dogs find snakes in the yard, Martin is there to take care of it. Joseph helps out however he can whenever something is needed as well. If I wasn't sure that everything could keep running without me around, I would have never taken this journey. Couldn't have happened. But thankfully, Martin and Joseph are more than capable, and that gives me the peace of mind that I need. I honestly cannot imagine going through something as grueling as a dental school program without a rock-solid foundation like this. So, is it easy being a 52-year-old iconic guy in a sea of 20-somethings? Not even close. The sandstone brain is real, the pharmacology exams are brutal for me, and I still have to Google a lot of the messages that show up in the class group chat. But stepping into this third phase of life, moving from earning to returning, has been one of the most rewarding decisions I've ever made. My brain might move a little slower, but my purpose is clearer. My clinical empathy is deep, and my support system is absolutely unshakable. So if you're sitting out there wondering if you're too old to chase a massive dream, let my journey be proof that it's never too late to reinvent your life. Thank you all for watching today. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the life of a non-traditional dental student, hit the like and subscribe buttons below and leave a comment, preferably with some emojis that I understand so I don't get confused. And I'll see you on the next episode of Dr. Dad the Dentist. Keep chasing those dreams.